everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Decision Hour. I'm Adam, and I got another hot show lined up for you today.
Man, I thought you were going to say you had a hot guest host. What the hell?
You see how I left that open? And sure enough, you took the reins and just ran with it. So, folks, if you hear the voice, you know who that is. It's my special, and I emphasis special friend, Heather Dobson. She's coming back for another episode. Heather, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Got all the nice, quiet silence over here so I can make sure we're operating uninterrupted.
Yeah, sure. We'll see how that works out.
Although my dog is in the room with me, so we'll see.
Nice. Very nice. Well, listen, why don't you let everybody know what they can expect from today's episode? Yeah.
So once again, I have the privilege of bringing on just some of the coolest people I know. And the best thing about this so far, Adam, is, besides, getting to talk to you so much,
right,
is that all of these people I'm bringing on are my friends.
Yeah.
These are
you have a plethora of really cool friends.
I do. It's amazing what my community is, and I'm so grateful for it. So today we have my friend Kisa Libby, who is based out of Utah.
Okay. And
Kisa is a Navy veteran, and I think probably the epitome of the crusty sailor.
Really? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I like her already. All right.
Sailor.
A salty sailor. Okay.
Yeah, she's a salty sailor for sure. And that's one of the reasons I love her so much. But there's a couple of things that I have learned about Kisa that just make me really admire her and respect her in a lot of ways. Kisa and I have known each other for about 4 years. So thanks for coming on the show, Kisa.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
Yay. So one of the things that stands out about Kisa for me is a conversation that I want to have, because I don't have any experience in this area, but I love what Kisa's doing. So Kisa has 2 sons. They're 14 and 8. Is that right, Kisa?
Well, actually 15 and 9. Bash turned 15 in April.
Okay, so they've had birthdays 15 and 9. So Bash and Eli are her sons, and she's a single mom raising these 2 kids. Now, for the listening audience out there, I don't have children unless they have fur or 4 feet or something like that. I don't have children. And pretty early on in my friendship with Kisa, she had made a post on Instagram or something where she was talking about she listens to the podcast, The Art of Manliness, because she's raising boys to be men. Right. And that it's important to have this foundational knowledge so that she's creating men that are growing into a world where they are healthy and happy and productive and strong men. And I thought that was so admirable. So Kisa, can you tell me a little bit about your experience with raising your boys on your own? I know they have a dad, and their dad is still involved in their lives, but the bulk of the work is on you. At what point did you, when was it that you were like, I got to do something to make sure that I'm raising good men?
Well, it was kind of a convoluted journey, but right after I separated from my ex, I kind of had this panicked dating experience where I was trying to find a replacement husband / dad. And it was just one dirtbag after another. And they got worse dirtbags. So I kind of had to take a step back, and I feel like life was trying to tell me something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had to decide, I had to make a decision. So I decided I was going to do it on my own. And then I had to kind of make a plan of action. So I moved closer to my ex so that he could be more physically present in their lives when he could. And then I just started watching men around me that I admired and building a plan from there.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important distinction. I've seen this happen a lot where somebody gets a divorce and then they immediately look for that replacement it's a survival instinct, I think. And to know
sure.
that was your journey. Adam, so Adam also was a single parent for most of his son's life. I'm curious to know, like, your take on this being the single dad. So it's a little similar, but different.
It's like looking in the mirror and listening to myself as a woman. I mean, I don't know if was that too far. Maybe a little bit too far.
The visual.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
No, for me, it was kind of the same situation. It was just like one relationship into another, knowing I should not have been in those relationships to begin with anyway. And then it was finally at a point where it was just like, I'm probably doing more harm than good. And I had to take a step back and really realize, like, wait a minute. One, I'm supposed to be setting the example, and I'm jumping from one relationship to the next. So that's not a good example that you want to be setting to your child, one. And two, I agree. When I finally stepped back and said, you know what? I don't need a woman in my life. And right now, I don't know if I necessarily want a woman in my life. And I ended up I was single for about eight years or so, on occasional dates here and there.
Nice.
But it was like I took that time off because I realized I was jumping from one relationship to the next. I didn't know who I was anymore. I had to find out who I was. And once I was able to do that, then I realized, okay, now I'm open to having a relationship with somebody. I don't necessarily need somebody in my life, but it would be nice to have someone or want somebody in my life where, at that time in my life, where I could share my life with. And once I took a step back, everything was just, it seemed like life got easier. I was setting better examples. More importantly, because it wasn't about, I never made it about me. It wasn't me. It was, I wake up every day. Okay, what I have, a child to worry about, and I have to be an example. I got to make sure I'm setting a good example, at least until he's out of high school and on his own, which that time's drawing close. So,
yeah, 100%. Like, that is like, I identify with that 100%.
Yeah. And I think as parents, we don't, as single parents, like a lot of people don't really, see like, oh, this, I had a hard time with one. I was surprised that God gave me one child, trusted me enough with that. I can't imagine raising two children on my own. And it's like there's no manual. There's no parenting manual. There's books out there, and a lot of those books were written by people that don't have kids, whatever, the doctors, whatever. You really have to kind of go through it and find it within yourself each and every day, and
absolutely,
it's not always easy.
No,
so Kisa,
not even close.
One of the things that you said is that you started looking at the men around you, your friends and colleagues, kind of at their behavior, their modeling, and what kind of examples they could set. And I'm fortunate enough to know a couple of those people that she's talking about. Mm-hmm. How do you, to me, it's just this, like, it would be terrifying if I had a kid and you're like introducing someone into their life. Not as a romantic partner, but just even as just a friend or someone who's going to be in their life. So how did you get to a point where, okay, this is a person who I trust to not only be involved in my son's life, but also have the power to make impressions upon him?
Well, it kind of happened organically. The competitive shooting journey happened a little bit before I started figuring out the parenting boys journey, because I ended up in a group of people with a ton of men to look at for examples. And then as I started to build relationships with different people, I started to kind of catch on like, wow, these are men I admire. And like, these are like two like dudes that I would want my kids to be like, or hang out with, or any number of combinations. And so as I started bringing my oldest son, Sebastian, into shooting, and he started palling around with them, and I watched that happen. And then it was like this aha moment, and it was him and Jeff, and just seeing those two like ADHD weirdos like bonding, and I was like, this is where it's at. Like, this is how I can, like, there's no substitution, but this is where I can start to supplement,
Yeah. And I think that's such a powerful statement. It's not a substitution, but it's a supplement. And I want to go back to the competitive shooting, what you talked about. So Adam, Kisa and I met through our mutual friend, Jeff, who she just mentioned, who is Uncle Jeff to her kids, and asshole Jeff to some of us also. You've heard me talk about Jeff. He's the owner of RDR Gear, and that's where all my holsters and everything. But so that's how Kisa and I met. And Jeff was telling me, like, you got to meet my friend Kisa. You got to meet my friend Kisa. Like she's awesome. You'll love her. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And so Kisa and I met at a shooting competition in Utah. And it was at the beginning, actually, and I met her son, Sebastian, that night too. It was at the beginning of each of our competitive shooting journeys, right? Like it was very, probably, for me, that it was a night shoot. It was probably maybe my third competition I'd ever shot in my entire life. And Kisa was pretty early on too, but Kisa had this like commitment and dedication to, I like this. I think part of it too was the people that are in that community up there in Salt Lake. And just like, I sat back in amazement and watched like how committed she was to doing dry fires every day on her lunch breaks and filming them and everything that she did. And one of the things you told me, Kisa, pretty early on is that one of the reasons why you decided to not only become a competitive shooter, but also to share the journey is to show people, and especially women, that competitive shooting and the firearm space is not only for gun bunnies and is not only for, geared out tactical dudes, but you are you're a mom, you're an accountant. I mean, you have you work at a cool company, but you're a normal person, right? And tell me a little bit about that decision and why you wanted to share that journey and why that was important.
Well, competitive shooting was a game changer for me, just personally, just coming out of the Navy and living in a state that I wasn't from and not having many friends. I actually dated a guy who was a competitive shooter for about 2 minutes. And after our first couple of dates, I was like not into him, but I definitely wanted to check out this competitive shooting thing that he did. And then I just took off running. And it was like the people, like I came for the shooting, but I stayed for the people because that camaraderie that I missed so much from the Navy, it was there. It was there on the range, and those people accepted me for the crustiness that I was. Yeah. And it was everything I needed. It was, and more.
Yeah. I think it's such an overlooked community. Especially when it comes to
some of the strongest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's, so I live in Arizona, but was traveling to Salt Lake. It's this really interesting thing, how different communities are. And like, I feel like my shooting family is in Salt Lake. It's not in Arizona. And I haven't been able to find that shooting family here. But I will tell you that I'm not as committed to it as Kisa is. Competitive shooting for me is an outlet for whatever, for stress. It's a way for me to improve my shooting skills, like all of these things. But for Kisa, it really became this network and this community of developing these relationships and friendships with people. And then she introduced Sebastian, her son, to competitive shooting also. And Kisa, can you talk a little bit about the transformation you saw in your son?
Oh, well, I mean, it was amazing. And I mean, competitive shooting is everything for me, Heather, because I don't date and I don't do anything else but work and shoot and raise my kids. So like, that's my social outlet. Like I don't go to church. I don't volunteer really anywhere. So that's why it's like so encompassing in my life, because you have a lot of other stuff going on that, but, I was hesitant to bring Sebastian, and I was really nervous because he has ADHD, and then he has like some developmental delays in his motor functions, and he basically tests kind of like right in the gray area on the spectrum, just depending on who's given the test, it seems like. So I was nervous, but I wanted to share it with him because he thought it was cool and he wanted to see me do it. And when I brought him out, everyone on my squad was just so excited to have a kid on our squad, and everyone was so just enthusiastic and supportive. And it would take him like 5 minutes to run a stage that should take 15 seconds. And like nobody cared and everybody cheered him on. And he walked away like from that. He talked about it the entire way home. It was like an hour-long drive. And he couldn't wait to do it again. And so I just started buying him the gear, and I started bringing him whenever he wanted.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned to me early on too, that you even saw an improvement in some of his motor skills and stuff too, because there's a lot of manipulation of, the gun and everything else. Yeah.
Well, when he started seeing an occupational therapist, it's always kind of like this weird kind of thing that you go through when you're talking to like a pediatrician or a therapist, and they're like, well, what kind of things do you do for fun, Bash? And then you have to like be like, are they okay to say like I shoot? Are they not going to call the cops or something? Because people don't understand sometimes. Mm-hmm. So his occupational therapist was a little leery. Like I could tell she was like, oh, okay. We worked with her for like a year and a half, and she said that we showed her some videos, and then Bash actually sat down with her and explained all the range safety rules and how like all the rules for our particular sport. And he explained it so well that she just kind of like was like, oh, I mean, it sounds okay. You're doing it with your mom. It sounds great. And every time we would come see her, he'd show her a video, and by the end of like that year and a half time period with her, she was like all in. Like she thought it was the greatest thing.
Oh, I love that. I love to hear that, because I feel like sometimes, I mean, we kind of have an uphill battle anyway, because we are shooters and we are gun owners, and then we're women. So people are like, that's kind of weird, just in general, not everybody, but just in general. And then you say, oh, I'm taking my kid to the shooting range, or my kid's shooting in a competition, and people freak out. And Adam, you know a little bit about that too, because Adam's son is also a shooter.
Yeah, he shoots for SASP right now. Last year was his first year shooting competitively. He shot it. He ranked right now. He just moved up in the ranks, but he's ranked like 5th in the state of Arizona, and he's in the top 100.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome!
Nationally, and he's like, I want to do the Olympics, and I want to do this competitively, collegiately, and stuff. I was like, hey, yeah, and for me it was like, grow up playing football. You're gonna play football, and then junior year, beginning of the year, he's like, I'm not playing football anymore, and I'm like, find something else. He's like, I'm gonna shoot, and I'm like, okay, I'm listening. I approve. Let's do this. And it's fun to watch. It was something that I, being an Army vet, and I was an instructor in the military and whatnot, and I was decent at best, and now my kid outshoots me. So now I don't even bother shooting when we go to the range. I just let him, shoot.
Oh, well, we're going to have a discussion about that, Adam. You got to be practicing. Come on, man. I know where you got your CCW from.
Yeah. Don't tell the boys.
Well, and here's the thing about like the competitive shooting aspect. Well, in the practical shooting kind of like 3-gun community that we are in, like I can do this with my sons when I'm 70.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like this is something we can share forever.
Yeah. It's great family time. And it's like you said, it's something that you can always do.
Yeah. I think not enough people know about the shooting sports, and that there are welcoming communities here in Phoenix. I know, tons of people who are shooters. I've shot some matches up here, and just like anything else, you're going to run into some cliques, and you're definitely going to run into some assholes. But as a whole, people who are into the shooting sports or competitive shooting are eager to share it with other people who express an interest, regardless of their skill level. Yeah. I mean, I've been at matches here in Phoenix where, like 2 people roll in. One was a Mountie from Canada who just happened to see online that this was a match that was happening, and then he brought his friend, and he's like, I have a gun. The friend didn't have a holster. He didn't have and they're like, okay. I happen to be there, and I happen to be a firearms instructor also. And I actually really enjoy teaching beginners. Mm-hmm. And so, took him over to a bay. Yeah. I had an extra holster that would fit his gun. Somebody else had a belt, like everybody contributed. I took him over to a bay. We did some practice draws, and, they just joined our squad, and, it wasn't like everybody there knew each other, but it was, you have this shared interest. And those of us in the competitive sports competitive shooting want to encourage gun safety, responsible ownership, and Absolutely. Training. If you're going to have a gun, then let's train with it. And for some people like me, that's what I use competitive shooting for. I'm mediocre at best. On my best days, I'm mediocre. But for me, that's an active way to get out, go shoot, move, use my brain in a completely different way than I do sitting at my computer working on marketing stuff. And for Kisa too, I think, was that something that occupied your brain and took it away from, like, maybe, I don't know, shit you're dealing with at work and all the other stuff?
Oh, 100%, like 100%. And I'm the kind of person, everyone here served in the military, and that says a little bit about us, like, right off the bat. Like, we're not afraid of the unknown. We're not afraid of the challenge. And we're obviously probably not afraid of anyone who's an officer in here, but not afraid of hard work.
Yeah, no, we're all enlisted.
And exactly. So multi-gun and like handgun competitions required the like mastery of the skill. And let's just be honest, it's badass to run around on a range with a gun in your hand and shoot shit. Like, it's just awesome. Yeah. And it makes you feel a little bit like you did when I was in the Navy and I worked on the flight deck. Like, I got to get back in touch with that girl, that fearless girl that I used to be. I wasn't just a chubby single mom, you know what I mean? And it gave me back confidence, and it gave my son confidence, and he's getting high fives and fist bumps from like SWAT snipers, and so am I. And people are ready to give us anything that we need on or off the range. And like, that's not just because I'm a woman there with a child, although that probably does up the ante a little bit. But now Bash has basically become a competitive shooter in his own right, and he does his own thing. Like, he ROs. He's a range safety officer at all the local law enforcement matches, and he usually does it without me.
Yeah. I just think it's amazing. And I do want to mention here, I said it's been about 4 years since each of us started on this competitive shooting journey. Definitely a journey for Kisa, more of a hobby for me. And Kisa is a sponsored competitive shooter now. So she went from little skill, like, some skill in the very beginning to being
kind of a
enough,
big deal.
Yeah. And personable enough and developing the relationships that she's a sponsored shooter. Nice. So PWS is one of her sponsors and probably your main sponsor, right, Kisa?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And they're practically family almost at this point.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so it's just such a great community. And I love Kisa's just view of all of this because and Kisa also is an instructor. She got her instructor certification as well so that she could do similar to like what motivated me was to help women understand, hey, you don't have to be the only woman on the range, but if you are the only woman on the range, that's okay. Like, be bold, be brave, be out there. Like, there's plenty of matches I've been to where I'm the only woman, or I go to the range, an indoor range, and I'm the only woman on the range. And of course, every dude out there wants to help me or give me pointers or whatever. And I'm like, thanks. And so I think that's part of the motivation behind wanting to have Kisa on the show, is just so that, we're helping people understand that competitive shooting is not a men's only sport. And it's not only for people who were in the military or who are in law enforcement, but there's a community aspect to it and a social aspect to it, along with, you're getting out, you're being more active, you're getting off your ass, like literally getting off your ass, or sometimes falling on your ass. But one of the things too, Kisa.
Well, and it's okay.
And it's okay because you get up and you keep going. And Kisa, Kisa has a Instagram account, and she shares videos from her matches. She shares a lot of stuff with her son, and she shares like the shit too. She's not a person who is only showing the one video where she kicked ass on that stage. She's also very open about, here's where I messed up, here's how I overcame, or here's how I didn't overcome. Like, I walked away mad. and here's the lesson I learned from it.
Yeah.
Kisa, talk a little bit.
She's putting in the education.
What is that, Adam?
Good. I said she's putting in the education side of things for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's not about ego. Yes. And that's what you see across Instagram primarily, but across like social channels, is you see people who are only sharing the best of the best because they're driven by their ego, and they only want to show the good stuff and, show what a badass they are. The cool thing about Kisa is that she doesn't really give a fuck what other people think. And from this standpoint, it's like, this is why she's doing this. This is why it's important to her. This is why it's important for her son. And now our younger son has shown some interest in it too. And it's such an empowering, and I know some stories. Like, I know some stories of matches she's been to that are hard, like challenging matches, and people talking shit, like behind her back or whatever. And she perseveres through it. And I love it. Kisa, talk a little bit about.
My goal has always been to.
Go ahead, Kisa.
Go ahead.
I
was just going to say, my goal has always been to be real, Yeah. Like, I just want to be real about the journey, if that makes sense. So, because I would see these amazing shooters, female or male, and I would be like, how did you get here? Like, what did you do? And they'd be like, dry fire, just kind of ambiguous kind of stuff. And some people get into a little more detail, but there's really not a lot that you can really impart to someone. You can kind of point them in a direction, and then they kind of have to figure it out, or they have to pay for a coach. So I just started doing dry fire videos that were just like, if you scroll back to my Instagram, it's cringy. But I'll never take that down. I'll never take it down. Like, you can see me do some of the dumbest things when I was trying to figure stuff out. But it shows people the journey. Like, you want to learn how to quad load, this is how you quad load a shotgun. This is how you don't quad load a shotgun.
Yeah.
Just all of that stuff is there, and it is unfiltered. Like, it's muffin top and everything. It's all there.
Yeah, and I love it, and that's what I love about it and about you is that it is like this is real, and you guys, you have to go to her Instagram. Kisa, what's your Instagram handle?
It's Kisa _and_bash.
Yeah, Kisa _ that's KISA _ bash BASH. It's, you really do get to see the journey. And I mean, she really was, Adam. She was at work and on her lunch break would go into the warehouse and set up her camera and just film herself. Like, you know, now, fortunately, she works in a location where it was not unusual for her to have a gun at work, you know, like might not go over so well if you work, you know, like at McDonald's to go into the break room and, you know, be dry firing your gun. So she did have that benefit. So
well, the thing is when I get home, I'm not going to dry fire.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an important distinction of like, you know, finding the time, making the time in your day. Because when you get home, then you are like, then your mom when you get home.
Kids. Yep.
Yeah. Oh man. I just, Adam, I mean, it was just so important for me to have Kisa on and just tell the story and show like Kisa, the kinds of people that we bring on this show are, it's a variety, but it's always somebody who is doing something amazing and good in the world. And I absolutely honor you and respect you for the way you're raising your sons, for your commitment to your own self-improvement through competitive shooting, and, you know, just for being a badass friend too.
Well, I do my best, and I just try to raise my children to be the kind of people that I would trust leading this country into like the next generation. And that's always what I think about. I talk to them like I would talk to people that I respect, and I relate to them like adults already as much as I can. And I just try to pound it into them how important they are and like all that self-worth. And I'm not afraid to be wrong with them. And I apologize when I say like awful, you know, horrible things that I say that come flying out of my mouth because I'm a sailor, you know. I'm not afraid to say I'm sorry. Not afraid to say I'm wrong. And that's important because my parents didn't do that, you know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Nice.
Yeah, Adam, I felt like you would find some you know, some connection there.
Yeah, absolutely. And my hat's off to you for doing the single parenting thing. I mean, it's, you know, like I said, I've done it with one. Can't imagine doing it with two, let alone be a woman doing it with two. You know, not
it's
just
hard and easy, right?
Well, I mean,
like,
it's yeah. I mean, I could see
because you don't have to defer to this other person, you know? Like,
yeah. Well, that's the easy part. The easy part is like, this is how it is because I said so, and I don't have to ask anybody else. I don't have to like, well, let's see what the other parent says. Well, the other parent's not there, so this is how it's gonna go. And then when you're wrong or you do something, you're like, oh shit, I wish there was somebody. You know, I got nobody to talk to about this. Like, this is like one of those like, do I ask my parents? No, because I didn't like the way I was brought up, and I don't want to raise my son the same way that I was brought up. And not that I have a bad child, not. But there have been certain things where I was just like, okay, I learned from my parents on what not to do. Mm-hmm. You know, and then you screw up or you do something, and you're like, oh yeah, I totally could have took that a different route. A much better route. But that, I think the important thing is, and this is for parents out there everywhere, doesn't matter, you know, the materialistic stuff doesn't matter. What kids want, and especially for parents who have younger children, the key is being there for them, listening. And I think the problem with society today is a lot of people don't listen. A lot of parents don't listen. And you're seeing a lot of kids that are causing problems. And I think a lot of those are probably ones that are not military related kids. So, I'll just say that.
It's a weird thing. It's weird that we got such great parenting skills from the military.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing.
It
like, when you put the Smokey Bear hat on and you start doing the knife hand, like people listen. I think they should bring it all back. No, that's not sensitive enough. Oh, screw that. I didn't get any of that. Maybe we need to go through sensitivity training.
Like
blah,
I
blah,
have
blah.
Oh gosh, I have a son that's like, puberty, right? Like,
good
and
luck.
I cannot imagine how I would have dealt with that.
Yeah.
If I hadn't been in the Navy.
Oh, yeah.
But the Navy prepared me very well for that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Not only in the Navy, but also on an aircraft carrier.
There's like nothing. Yeah. There were no questions I didn't have an answer for. I knew it all already.
Mom, you're not supposed to say that.
I even explained to him what a Canadian belt buckle was.
Oh, boy.
And on that note, before the show gets too far south,
I love it.
we're coming up on time. Oh my God, I'm sweating right now. That's hilarious. Heather.
Yes, sir. Kisa, thank you for your time. Take a time out of your day. I mean, Kisa's at work today and took time to talk with us. And thank you for having such a commitment to raising the kind of boys into becoming the kind of men that, I'm proud to know and proud to support. And, maybe they'll support me in my old age too.
Well,
I got to be
Heather,
nice to Kisa's kids.
Thank you so much for your support. Like, you have been so supportive and you always keep it real. Like, I know when you're like encouraging me or telling me that you're proud of me or admire me, I know it's not BS. Like, and it always means a ton to me. Like, you are a very, very important friend. Like, you should know that for sure.
Thank you, Kisa. See, Adam, some people like me.
Yeah, well, that's... Sun shines on a dog's ass every now and then. Folks, that's all the time we have today. Keisha, thank you very much for joining us. Heather, as always, it's always a pleasure seeing you and chatting with you. If those of you listening want to become part of the HMG family, simply go over to www.heroesmediagroup.com. Until next time, you've been listening to The Decision Hour.